I have been counseling people as a clinical nutritionist for about 17 years, and this is something that comes up regularly. People have no problem giving up meat or bread or whatever they need to remove from their diet, but when it comes to sugar, they get very nervous because sugar is just like any other substance that stimulates pleasure centers in the brain. It's highly addictive. Today, we're going to be talking about what sugar is, um, the impact of artificial sugars on health. We'll cover sugar addiction and what causes it and how to work around it. And then I'll lay down a little plan to tame these cravings and give you some ideas on how to cope. So what is sugar? I found a wonderful quote from the Cleveland Clinic. Sugar is pretty amazing. It's the purest form of energy available to us. And unlike fats and proteins, because you can make glucose from fat and proteins during time of starvation to give us energy and keep us going. So sugar can actually cross the blood-brain barrier because it's the food of the brain. And it tastes great. Sugar is a food. It is a molecule that makes up carbohydrates. And every sugar can be a monomer, which means one sugar molecule, or it can be a disaccharide, like table sugar, which is a two sugar molecule, or it can be a polysaccharide, which means it's made of many, many, many molecules. And the problem with sugar is it's everywhere. It's part of many, many foods that we eat, and except for meat. And sugar has many names. Glucose is usually found in our bloodstream. That's what our body runs on. When you go to the doctor and he say your blood sugar is low or your blood sugar is high, he's talking about glucose. There is no sugar in the blood. Fructose comes from fruit, as its name indicates. Sucrose is the table sugar. Maltose is another different sugar found in nature. Lactose is milk sugar. Dextrose, it's a man-made sugar from plants. Starch is the polysaccharide. Starch is made of many, many sugars. Then you have high fructose corn syrup, which is made, of course, in a lab as well. We have honey, agave syrup, and fruit juice, and coffee. Really? Yes. Coffee is interesting because at first it tastes bitter, but there are several, depending on where it was grown, which region in the world it comes from, how much water and sunshine it receives, what kind of minerals are in the soil the coffee bush was grown. Coffee does have sugar. Some coffee is so sweet, actually, I can't drink it because I don't like sugary coffee. Coffee also has fat. If you drink coffee, when you buy a new type of coffee, look at the top and you can see little droplets of fat. Just to illustrate that removing sugar from the diet is not realistic. What we can do is reduce the sugar in the diet, choose wisely, choose healthy sugars like starch in potatoes or pasta. Those are complex sugars and they're okay. And then be careful how we combine the sugar. Combining sugar and fat, that's definitely a recipe for type 2 diabetes. Combining sugar and another sugar, crepe, the typical French dessert, and ice cream. That's a very heavy dessert, and that's a very bad combination for your health. So it all depends how we use the sugar, what type of sugar, and then how much of it we consume. So what sugar is not is a cause of diabetes, because we talk about blood sugar, people think diabetes comes from sugar. Diabetes does not come from sugar. Believe me, I would have it because I used to eat 10 pounds of fruit a day. I cut down now. And I'm a totally sugar addict, and we'll talk about that in a minute, about my type of addiction. So sugar does not cause diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is caused by an unhealthy diet that, of course, has sugar, has lots of fat, but mainly it's caused by an overconsumption of rich foods, usually high protein and high fat. Unhealthy sugar is not something to eliminate from your diet, as I just said. It's pretty impossible. Sugar is not poison. It really doesn't hurt you. It's a wonderful treat. It always tastes good, makes everybody happy. Sugar does not cause cancer, and sugar is not at the root of obesity, not by itself. As I said, it's how you combine the sugar that makes it a poison or a beneficial treat. So what sugar is good for you? Honey is a wonderful food found in nature, and when you have a cold or the flu, you can make tea with honey and lemon. It's a very soothing and comforting beverage. Agave nectar is the syrup of the agave plant, and it's actually not a bad sugar, but it is still a sugar, and it's still high in calories, just like honey, just like table sugar. Artificial sweeteners are the ones that you don't want to use. They don't make you healthier. They don't reduce the amount of calories you eat because they gives people a false sense of security. They think because they are using an artificial sweetener, they are getting less calories, so they are more likely to drink higher volume of soda and consume larger portions of foods sweetened by these ingredients. Fructose is mainly always found in fruit and fruit juice, and fruit juice is not a good beverage. It doesn't have as many vitamins as eating the fruit, and it's just liquid sugar. The orange juice for breakfast is something that got started here, I think, in the 50s because they had a surplus of orange juice. You should not drink orange juice for breakfast because when you drink fructose at fast, it reaches the bloodstream immediately because fructose is a simple sugar. There is nothing to stop it. It goes immediately to the bloodstream. You get an avalanche of insulin to carry it to the tissues. Your glucose drops. You feel ravenously hungry, and you will eat a large amount of food. So there is no reason to drink juice in the morning. You want to start your breakfast with a complex carbohydrates, fiber, and protein. And sugar in the raw is real sugar. It's not bad. It's the sugar you use for baking, creating all kinds of desserts. And it's not good, it's not bad, it's a sugar. It does what it's supposed to do, which is sweeten. So artificial sweetener, decades ago, people used them to prevent weight gain. They actually don't work. So the answer is a resounding no. And there are several studies that both here in the US and around the world that have reported there are absolutely no benefits to artificial sweeteners. And they actually promote cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. They can increase your BMI and increase mortality in the end. So if you are using those, I advise you to stop and use real sugar, because real sugar, the body knows what to do with it. It's healthy, it's a food, it gives you energy. Just don't use too much of it. So what is addiction? Addiction is when you cannot control the impulse. You have to have that substance. It's the same with tobacco, alcohol, recreational drugs, and it's the same with sugar. And food itself actually can be addictive. There are people who cannot stop eating, they never get the satisfaction. That's an addiction to food as well. Anything that stimulates the pleasure centers can be addictive. Sex can be addictive as well. So it's a behavior that always occurs at the expense of other activities. You have to act on that impulse. So it can rob you of time, can rob you of money, and in the case of sugar, it can really make you gain weight or just not feel good. So how does an addiction start? It starts with a binge. There is a trigger. Then you start binging. Then you get desensitized and you build tolerance. So you're going to need more and more and more to satisfy that craving. That's how addictions work in general. When you try to quit, you're going to be okay for a while because it's still in your system. Once you're depleted, the cravings will come back with raging signs. And it's very, very hard to resist. That's when people they get overwhelmed by that desire. They cannot stop themselves. And then the cycle starts all over again. So when you want to stop an addiction, after you stop, when you get that craving, try not to give into it. If you can, use willpower and find ways to distract yourself and not give into it, then it will pass and then you'll be cleansed and it won't bother you as much. And again, with sugar, it's difficult. You can stop eating ice cream. You can stop eating candy. You can quit soda, but there will be always sugar in your food. If you eat potatoes, that's sugar. But the type of sugar we crave tends to be very specific. People who are addicted to ice cream are not going to replace that with pasta or potatoes. People who are addicted to chocolate will not go for ice cream. An example of that is me. I'm addicted to sugar in the form of fructose because I like the sugar and the flavor of fruit. It's that combination. If I don't eat fruit, I'm not going to replace that with ice cream or chocolate. I don't care for those things. I don't care for pastries. I don't go for donuts. I don't go for desserts. I can have them like everybody else, but that is not something that keeps me up at night. But 2 days without fruit is a long time for me. I hardly ever go a day without fruit. So you have to find out what flavor of sugar you crave. So, and then you remove that out of the diet and you should be okay. And then there are people who crave all types of sugar. Pasta, potato, bread, they crave sugar in form of starch. That's a little more difficult, but there are ways to work around that as well. So when you eat your starch, don't eat the pasta with cheese. Eat the pasta with lots of vegetables. So you are getting the pleasure of chewing that a delicious carbohydrate, but you're also getting lots of nutrients from the vegetables, such as peas, broccoli, onions, cauliflower, whatever you like. Where does sugar addiction come from? People talk about a sweet tooth. We blame the food industry, which is not innocent. We can blame hereditary or just your parents when you were a child. If you cry, if you're unhappy, they give you a sugary treat. And actually that becomes a habit because whenever you have a problem, you are given sugar. So you build that relationship. If you feel bad, sugar makes you feel good. So it's important to break away from that. The environment, the office place is always where most sugar temptation lives. Or if you live in a family, your spouse, your parents, your friends, your roommates are always having a display of sugar. It makes it difficult to fight at times. And then there is advertising. Lots of people don't think about sugar until they see a picture of it, either in a magazine or they say something on television or on the internet, and they would go and buy a candy bar, which they would not have done if they did not have that visual stimulation. And then lack of self-control, which actually is not true. Addiction is not easy to control. So I wouldn't blame someone for giving in those impulses, but you should always seek help. So the guilt is counterproductive, and finding someone to blame is also not very helpful. What's important is to identify where these cravings are coming from and then how to fight them. So neurotransmitters, neurochemicals are usually at the root of the addiction, because sugar stimulates pleasures, opiates, which are the pleasure centers in the brain. If you have volatile glucose, people who have diabetes, hypoglycemia, where your glucose is constantly low, you're going to be craving sugar because you need to bring your sugar up in order to function. Low serotonin, believe it or not, will also make you crave sugar, because when your serotonin is low, you're going to be moody, depressed, all kinds of emotional issues can rise from that. So you can run to sugar to feel good. Low endorphins, same thing. People who have low endorphins, it's very difficult for them to feel good. If when they get hurt, there is nothing to bring that hurt down. It stays vivid. I've had patients who were angry because they remembered things that happened to them 20, 30 years ago, but they remember them with the same intensity as when that incident happened. There is nothing to lessen that impact. So if you have low endorphins, then you need something to feel good, and sugar is always a solution for that. Low dopamine also causes depression, feeling tired, feeling lethargic. You can also run for sugar as a pick-me-up. What are the symptoms of unstable blood sugar, blood glucose? Feeling tired, if you feel tired, especially after eating. If you feel tired and lethargic after eating, either you had a very heavy meal, which can happen, or your glucose is too high. It's not being uptaken by your tissues, by your cells. So it's sitting there in the bloodstream, and you're going to feel exhausted. When your glucose is low, you would also be irritable, very easily frustrated, and prone to anger. You can feel confused, foggy, and have difficulty concentrating as well. The causes of uneven blood sugar are not very simple. Sometimes it's very hard to diagnose. Yo-yo dieting is so damaging. It causes weight resistance. It can cause hypoglycemia. It can also cause the satiety problems. People can eat around the clock and they never feel that sensation that they had enough to eat. Meal skipping, if you do that for many years, if you don't eat breakfast, your glucose will be low, and the first thing you're going to crave is sugar, because now it's an emergency. Your body needs that glucose to keep running. And also sugar is very easy to consume. It just melts in your mouth. It tastes good. It feels good, and it fits the bill. If you find yourself overeating at night, that means you didn't eat enough during the day. And after dinner, you're going to crave something that's sweet, because we are craving comfort. Hypoglycemia, this is a chronic condition, but it's not incurable. It can be reversed. There are ways to reverse that. And hypoglycemia happens to either it's genetic, or people who have been doing the yo-yo dieting, starvation, skipping meals for many years. You can develop hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is when the glucose is always low. You can't keep it at a normal level. So low serotonin and dopamine, it does make you go crazy, and it does cause depression. That impulse behavior. If someone says the wrong thing, you're ready to pounce on them, and you're constantly craving sugar. Low serotonin can also cause constipation because the colon moves as with rings to squeeze the matter inside. If you don't have enough serotonin, those rings don't move. So that's very important. So what are the causes of low serotonin? If you are on medications, can cause damage and prevent serotonin synthesis. Low levels of tryptophan. So if you have candida, the yeast overgrowth, or any kinds of GI problems, then your tryptophan either is not there or it's diverted. There is a test that we can conduct to identify that. And if there is no serotonin going to the brain cannot synthesize serotonin and dopamine. Hormone problems can cause like high stress can cause serotonin to be used up. So you are using more than you produce. That results in a serotonin deficiency and also nutrition deficiency. Niacin, which is your B3, copper, zinc, magnesium, can lead to low serotonin levels and dopamine because the enzymes that catalyze these chemical reactions to make serotonin from tryptophan, those enzymes need these nutrients, they use them as tools, and without these nutrients, the enzyme is impaired. And then, of course, genetics, but we can work around genetics. How to recognize low endorphin levels is when you have pain and the pain doesn't go down. For example, you hit your knee at the corner of a table and that pain doesn't go down. It takes a long time for that pain to reduce in intensity. If you feel like you have low self-esteem all the time, you feel awkward around people, you are too sensitive to criticism, anything someone says, even the slightest remark will make you ashamed, feel bad, make you cry. These are all symptoms of low endocrine production. So again, genetics, medication, obesity sometimes, food allergies. And that's a whole other discussion, how food allergies affects low endorphin. I will not be covering this here today because it's very complex. So is there a treatment for sugar craving? So it's very complex because, as we said, sugar is everywhere, but there is no defined medical diagnosis. There is no test we can conduct. There is no threshold we have to watch for, such as how much do you eat, what do you crave. We haven't come up with a diagnosis because it's not considered harmful like alcohol or tobacco. Again, because sugar is a food. The patient is often unaware. You are often unaware that you have sugar cravings because it's just something you do every single day. Every day at 3 o'clock, you have to have a cooking. Every night after dinner, you have to have ice cream. I had a woman who used to have a pint of ice cream every night for many years. I put her through a detoxification program and it was gone within a week. And it's been now over 10 years and she's still doing great, but she did not go back to the ice cream. A couple of times she had a bite and the craving came all over again. So she went back to the program and managed to get away from it. But once you are done with that addiction, you don't want to take that fatal bite. It's like a smoker who quits smoking for 20 years. They go to a party, they smell it, they drink a little bit, someone hands them a cigarette, or they are tempted to have a cigarette. The next day, they will go and buy a pack. Lack of support. There is very little information about sugar addiction, and it's not recognized. There aren't many solutions out there. And professionals such as therapists, doctors, even nutritionists don't really have a tangible solution. But I do. Stick with me. So that's why there is really no treatment. But there are ways to identify the craving, the type of craving, and then we can really manage it. So how do we work around that? How do we cope? So you can break free from sugar addiction, but you have to be determined. How long does it take to tame the cravings? Some people it will take a week, others it can take a month. It depends how dedicated you are at getting rid of the addiction. But also with sugar addiction, people are not ashamed to eat sugar. They are not uncomfortable. They don't get sick after eating sugar. After eating sugar, you feel good. And like alcohol, where you get wasted after drinking, or tobacco, where it stings and it colors your teeth, gives you bad breath, and so there are signs that it's bad. So you're more likely to stop. But with sugar, you have to be really, you have to recognize that it is a problem and that it bothers you and it's causing a problem like weight gain, or inability to focus when you don't have your fix, or you are waking up at 10 p.m., running to the grocery store to go get the ice cream. These are really, now the addiction is impacting your quality of life. Then you want to do something about it. So the answer really depends on how much the addiction is bothering you and how determined you are to put an end to it. So we're going to play a game. If you do a search on the internet, you find all kinds of interesting mechanisms to cope, and we're going to go over them. If you are watching this video at home, why don't you pause the video and then do a search and see what you can come up with. Make sure you make a list of your findings so you don't forget them. Okay. So this is what comes up on the internet. Drink plenty of water. Hydration prevents craving. That is absolutely not true. Drinking water will not do anything to the craving. Drinking water can make you even hungrier because water leaves the stomach very quickly. So after 5 minutes after you drink water or any beverage, you will feel very hungry. Eating protein will make you feel full. It will not get rid of the craving because the craving often comes after eating, as in dessert. Eat a high fiber diet. Well, while that's very healthy and it stabilizes glucose, yes, if your cravings are due to hypoglycemia, low glucose levels in the blood, then eating protein and fiber and complex carbohydrates will keep the glucose stable and you won't have that problem. But if your craving is due to an addiction, it will not work. Eat fruit. You're having a problem with an addiction to sugar and you're going to eat more sugar. No, that doesn't work. It's only going to make you eat more fruit because if you're craving chocolate, remember we were saying that sugar, you don't crave table sugar. Nobody craves white sugar. We crave a sweet flavor. Either it's in the form of fruit or chocolate or different flavors of ice cream, or candy, but it's always a flavor. It is never the sugar by itself. So you can eat fruit thinking, oh, okay, I'm not going to go for ice cream. I'm going to eat fruit and it's going to quench this craving. It will not work because there is nothing to replace that flavor you're seeking. So stabilizing blood glucose reduces hunger and cravings and mood swings. Yes, stable glucose is always the best option. It's always healthier. And if your glucose is stable, you may feel less hungry, and you will have less mood swings because having hypoglycemia always makes you jittery. But it will not help with the cravings. Get enough sleep, yes. If you are exhausted, if you do not sleep enough, if you are highly stressed, you are more likely to crave glucose. how do we cope with sugar addiction? Find what flavor of sugar you like, okay? And then when do you crave it? This is really important because you identify that trigger. Is it after dinner? You're looking for comfort. Is it in the afternoon because you had a very stressful day? You had a bad meeting? Or is it like clockwork? Every day at 3 o'clock, you crave something sweet. That means either you didn't eat breakfast or you didn't eat enough for lunch, or sometimes it's just a habit. Every afternoon, you have to have something sweet. Every time you watch television, you have to have something sweet. Now, you get rid of the habit or watch television at different times may help curb that habit. And then, how much time between attacks? If you have these raging cravings, then when does it happen? Is it after a stressful day? Is it at that time of the month if you're a woman? Is it triggered by a memory? Holidays are a good example, birthdays, death of a loved one. So you then, if that's the case, then you prepare for those moments so you don't give in to the craving. Find another distraction. And then how do you feel after the binge? Do you feel guilty? If you feel guilty, then next time don't eat as much. If you feel good, great, then don't blame yourself. It is okay to have a treat as long as you eat one candy bar, not three, and not a candy bar every day. So again, the dose determines the poison. So how do we get balance? How do we come to a place of equilibrium? Definitely change your diet. Have a diet high in fiber, healthy proteins, good complex carbohydrates. Eat breakfast every day and don't drink orange juice for breakfast. Orange juice is not a meal. Have a complex carbohydrate that has protein, such as oatmeal. It is okay to put sugar in your oatmeal. You can add cinnamon, you can add nuts, and if you add nuts to your oatmeal, you're now getting a very rich power breakfast because you have protein, you have fiber, you have sugar, complex carbohydrates, and it's wholesome and it will satisfy you for 2-3 hours. A lot of people say, "Oh no, I can't have ice cream. I can't have oatmeal because after 3 hours I'm hungry." That's normal. When you eat eggs, you don't get hungry for 6 hours because it clogs your digestive system. And that's not normal. That means that's not working. You are not digesting your eggs. Those eggs, they are sitting there for a very long time. It is the same thing when you eat meat. Meat stays in your system it makes it through the digestive tract in 48 hours. Things like beans or potatoes, about 24 hours. So you want things that go in, get metabolized, and come out. You don't want your stomach to stay full and heavy for hours and hours. If necessary, if your cravings are really raging, you can't stop them. You can't lose willpower. You can't use willpower, and they're out of control. Then we need to get tested, and we need also, if you have a consultation with someone like me, then we would ask questions. Do you have itching on the scalp? Do you have itching somewhere else? If that's the case, you probably have candida because yeast will make you crave sugar because that's what it feeds on. So we need to look at that. We need to look at other signs too. Do you have bloating? Do you have indigestion? We look at other signs, and if necessary, we can run a stool test. We can run a metabolic test to find out if you have indican in your urine. That means that the tryptophan is being metabolized by bacteria in the gut and it's not getting to the brain. And then how many times have you tried to stop the addiction and failed? If that's the case, you definitely need to talk to a professional, either a nutritionist, or if there is nothing physiologically wrong, then maybe a therapist to give you other ways to cope with the emotional triggers. So don't do it alone. You don't have to do this alone. It is okay to seek help. Although there aren't many people who understand sugar addiction, but if you really look for answers, you will find them. So start by detoxification plan. And if you read the information out there about detoxification for sugar craving, they will tell you they don't work. They are both right and wrong. They are right because sugar is everywhere. How do you get rid of sugar? Um, but the way you do it is you get rid of the sugar that doesn't serve you. The donuts, the ice cream, the cookie, they are not an essential food. So I can give you a plan that you can apply for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks maximum. Within 3 weeks, the addiction should be gone. But then don't eat that food again. If you like sugar in general, then we have to find another way to eat that sugar, like pasta, potatoes, bread. These are not unhealthy foods. It's only how you combine them and how much of them do you eat. Make sure you eat a copious, nutritious lunch every day. Don't skip breakfast. I cannot repeat that enough because many of my patients skip breakfast. And a lot of people who are trying to lose weight skip breakfast. Have a snack in the afternoon, but 3 hours before dinner. Don't eat um, just before dinner. Lots of people nibble as they're cooking. Do not nibble while you're making dinner. If you need a snack, have a snack before dinner. Make sure it's a meal and not snack food. It's something healthy. And then make dinner. When dinner is ready, then enjoy your meal. Make sure your lunch is bigger than your dinner. You don't need a heavy dinner. You don't need to overeat at dinner if you can. And then do 1 day a week of juicing or broth fast. Quit sugary drinks, that's the easiest thing to do. The only beverage that's healthy for land animals is water. And there is no reason to drink cow milk. It does not help you with calcium. It does not help children grow healthy. It is not a necessary food. And if you have questions, we can have a conversation about that. The American Medical Association has released a press release years ago that there are no benefits to drinking cow milk or eating cheese. So replace your milk with plant-based milk, oat milk, almond milk, soy milk. I prefer soy milk because soy milk has antioxidants. It's actually the healthiest of plant-based milks. Soy does not cause cancer. That is not true unless you're specifically told by you, unless you had breast cancer and you have a type of cancer that feeds on estrogen and your doctor has told you not to eat anything that has estrogen. In that case, maybe you can choose a different milk, but soy milk is the healthiest of them all. Make sure your plant-based milk has vitamin D added because cow milk does not have vitamin D. It is added as well. Everything else being equal, take small steps. Don't torture yourself. As I said, if you have a serious addiction, you will not be able to do this on your own because how do you quit sugar? There are people who get hypnotized to stop smoking or to stop drinking, and it works. But they try to get hypnotized to lose weight, and that doesn't work because you have to eat. Hypnosis works by implanting the idea in your head that you should not do this thing or you should do this, but it's one thing. But with food, how could you stop eating? So indulge with caution. It is okay to have a treat, but if your treat is a trigger, like ice cream or candy bars or a cookie, you know that if you start, you won't be able to stop. Don't touch it. And then, do a detox regularly. Detox doesn't mean you have to buy a special product. It just means choose one day in a week where you're going to drink more water. You're going to eat only green leafy vegetables, low sugar fruit, and just have a healthy, clean day. and then avoid the fatal bite. If you know once you touch that ice cream, you're going to start eating it regularly, then definitely don't eat it again. If you have a plan, you have a goal, you start working on it, and then you have a setback, that's okay. Get up and get back on the saddle. Just because you fail once, that doesn't mean you'll fail again. And if you fail again, start again. The important thing is you keep trying. And then, of course, always talk to a professional. It is always good to seek help. Again, I have a list of added sugars, but these are the ones you find in added to food most often. Beet juice, fruit juice concentrate, malted barley, date sugar. Maltodextrin is a type of sweetener made from corn. Sucralose is Splenda, and I think it has other names. Mannitol, sorbitol, and ethyl maltol, anything that ends with OL is a sugar alcohol. Back when I was studying nutrition, we were told that these sugars were actually healthy because they don't have calories, but they add sweetness. And now we're finding out they actually can cause type 2 diabetes and they can increase your BMI. So I don't have the study with me, but they are actually as unhealthy as all these sugars. So what sugars to avoid? The added sugar. So try to buy food that has as little added sugar as possible. There are foods where it's impossible to avoid the sugar. Bread, for example, they add sugar so it would rise. Now, your bread should have 1 or 2 sugars added, not 5. If it has more than 2, then I would question it. Fruit juice is liquid sugar. You don't need fruit juice. It doesn't have that many health benefits. Sometimes it's a treat, and that's okay. If you need something cold and sweet with a certain flavor, that's fine to have that as a treat. But I would not have fruit juice as a beverage during a meal. Artificial sweeteners, that's nothing good about them. Soda, you don't need me to tell you that. You don't need anybody to tell you that soda is not a healthy beverage. Even the ones that says zero or no sugar, 0 calorie, whatever name the marketeers come up with, there is no reason to drink soda. And then the lattes. The lattes are in vogue. People love to go to work carrying their lattes or driving with their lattes on their way somewhere. Lattes they have lots of milk, they have lots of sugar. Some lattes pack up to 500 calories because they have caramel added, they have chocolate syrup. They can have more sugar than some of my meals. Okay, so that concludes our sugar craving conversation. If you have any questions, please write them below in the comments, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.